Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than the normal guitar review video. Today's video is going to be about some recording tips if you're going to record electric guitar at home. Now keep in mind, I'm not a professional engineer by any stretch or anything like that. These are just tips that I've done some research on, and I've been doing some recording of some new tracks. I just wanted to show my setup and some of the observations I've made and share that with you, and hopefully it's useful to you. First off, probably a good idea to give your room that you're going to record in some acoustic treatment. There is essentially three types of acoustic treatment. There are acoustic panels. The acoustic panels that I have are 4 feet by 2 feet, and they're 2 inches thick. And they're made of wood, the frames, then they've got insulation within them and speaker cloth on the front. And they're large panels, and I have 5 of them. I have one above my mixing desk, 2 on the side walls there to sort of catch reflections from the monitors for mixing. And then I have 2 other ones that I can put on the walls or move around as I want. And the setup I have with my amp is I have the amp near a wall. You don't want to necessarily have it right up against the wall or anything like that, though you could experiment. And I have an acoustic panel behind it because some of the amps have an open back, and that will help absorb some of the front or the back reflection. I also have one on the other side of the room facing the amp to absorb the sort of front reflection. And I found this to be somewhat helpful. You know, it helps deaden the reverb and gives you a more controllable sound, let's say. Treatment number 2 would be bass traps. Now these are going to be treatments that go essentially into the corners of the room, and I got some inexpensive foam ones. There's obviously very expensive fancy ones, and you can add tons to the room by this, but I wanted to block off the corners to help absorb some of the bass frequencies. The third type, and I haven't gotten around to working on this yet, but that'll be more in the mixing phase, is diffusion. And you can have some nice wood diffusions that you can purchase. In terms of what you're going into your computer is another consideration. I'd recommend getting a quality preamp and a quality audio interface. You may want to use compressor as well, or EQ or other things. With guitars, to be honest, I don't like them compressed. I like them to be very pure electrics and acoustics. And so I've got a Grace M101, Grace Design M101 preamp. It's highly recommended for very clear, transparent volume. It essentially just makes things louder without coloring the sound. If you want color, you may want to look into a tube preamp. I'm looking to add one to my arsenal as well, but I haven't got one yet. I'd love to try that out for vocals and bass and things that would run into the compressor and give them a bit rawer sound than the pure cleanness. But if you just want your mics to sound the way the mics are supposed to sound, the Grace is an awesome preamp. Highly recommend it. I've got a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40 as my audio interface. It's got great inputs in the back. It's got great features that I really like. There's lots out there. You have to decide if you're going to be running Firewire or USB or Thunderbolt and go with that, but do your research. There's tons there. I've assembled all my gear into a rack case, which I like a lot because it just makes it really convenient, and I've got 2 headphone inputs for various functions there. The manual says that you should record about 6 to 8 inches away, so I moved it about 6 inches away, and this took out some of the bass frequencies, which I actually found better. I found that decoupling the Royer helped reduce bass frequencies as well, so I put it on a boom stand so that it wasn't sitting on the floor directly. Another thing I found was I recorded the Royer without just that setup the way it was, and the signal was fairly uncompressed. But then I took a mic reflection filter for vocals and put it behind the Royer, because the Royer is a figure 8 pattern. It records from the front and the back. And this tighter setup actually gave me a more even frequency that was rendered to the recording, and I preferred this. So this was the ideal setup for me. And I actually found the Royer on axis to be preferable to off axis. You have to be a little bit careful with ribbon mics. Don't have phantom power running, and don't have wind or a lot of sort of air pushing against it can damage the ribbon inside the microphone. But I'm not recording at super loud volumes, and this mic was designed for guitar amps that are loud and does the job great. Other than that, I'd recommend putting new strings on. I actually use thicker gauge strings for recording than I sometimes use for playing because they just give you a little bit thicker tone. And experiment with your amp sound and move it around in the room until you find what you're after. And really, creativity and experimentation are the major keys for success in this area. So I hope that helped. I hope that gave you a little bit more knowledge maybe than you had for your home recordings, and I hope your recordings turn out great. Have a great day. Don't forget to hit like on the video and hit subscribe on the channel. Bye-bye.